All right, welcome everyone. This is the Intro to Guerrilla Budgeting class. My name is Eitan Cohen-Sid from Jungle Software, and we're going to go over budgeting in this webinar. This is an intro class, so it will be covering the basics, but we will go into some advanced features like globals and fringes, and we'll talk a little bit about currency and some other things. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat them in as I go along in the webinar. I'll be looking over to the chat screen and hopefully be able to see your chat. So let's get started. So guerrilla budgeting, we're going to go over, this is my PowerPoint. We're going to go back and forth from a PowerPoint to the software so I can keep on track. We're going to talk about how to load a budget. And there are multiple ways to load a budget. You could load either a template or a sample, and I'll explain the difference between what a template budget is and what a sample budget is. And then, of course, you could load a budget from either a saved file that you've saved previously or from another Guerrilla user. So let's hop on over into Guerrilla right now. And we're in the project manager. So when you first start Guerrilla, this is where you're going to be. Your schedules will be on the left-hand side and your budgets will be on the right. So we're going to be concentrating, of course, on the right-hand side. So there are two budgets loaded right now in Guerrilla. So what that means is that when you start Guerrilla and you see budgets on the right-hand side, these budgets are ready to go. So you just have to click on the budget here, the name of the budget, and it will go into that budget. Or click on this budget and it will open up that budget. This is basically your launch pad, if you want to call it that, right? So if you wanted to load a budget that is not in this list, then there are multiple ways to do that. So the first way is to go down here and you can see this little plus sign. If you hover over it, it'll say new or load budget. If you click on that, you can see a few buttons here. And there's quite a few options here to load a budget. Now, the first one here is load a budget. So this is, of course, a budget file that someone could send you, another Guerrilla user could send you. You just click that and you locate the file and load it, and then it will appear in the manager and then you can launch it. Now, this over here is load a form. Now, we have sample budgets and we have template budgets, and I'll explain the difference right now. So if you click on this, these two budgets, by the way, here are sample budgets. So when you click on the load form button, you have a few options. Okay, you've got samples, templates, and studios. Now, samples, what a sample budget is, and we have a 5 or 6 of them, and I can click on it to show you. But these are sample budgets, and sample budgets have numbers in them. Okay, that's why it's a sample. So you'll see possibly a number in front of the name of the budget. So if it says 175K digital, that means it's 175,000 because there's sample numbers in there, right? 1M, 1 million, there's numbers in there, right? 500K, 500,000. Okay, you can see where we're going here. Then, of course, the other option is a template. Now, a template, and we have a few here, are budget templates. So they do not have numbers in them, but they have account numbers. So you don't have to worry about putting in, 1001, talent, 1002, grip, set construction, that kind of thing. The accounts are already created for you, and there's lots and lots of accounts. And you can see the different types of budgets here. So you have a feature film budget, a low, mid, high, a short film, etc. So these do not have numbers, but they are templates that you can use for accounts. Okay, and then the last one is Studio. Now, this is also templates, even though it doesn't say templates, but the Studio templates are just that, right? They're templates from the Studio. Again, the account numbers based on the accounts that the studios use of that particular studio. So, for example, you've got your Disney Animation or DreamWorks or Fox, et cetera, et cetera. You've got your Netflix, your Amazon. These are using account numbers from that particular company, from that studio, because they have certain accounts that they use. And again, it's just the accounts and the line items, no numbers. Okay, so that's the load form. Let me go back down here. Okay, create a new budget. Now this one is literally create a budget from scratch. So it's like you open up a brand new Excel file, for example, and you got nothing there, and you literally create it from scratch. Now you can do that. It's a lot of work, but you can do that. We do have um, a uh, uh, a budget maker when you click this, so you can literally say how many sections you want, above the line, below the line, that kind of thing, and what you want underneath and how you want it numbered. So that does help you create a budget if you want to create it from scratch. All right. Now the other options here are importing older versions of Gorilla, like a budget from Gorilla 6, from Excel. You could do it from an Excel file or other software. And let me click on that right now. You can see the options here. Movie Magic budget. If you have a budget in Movie Magic, either version 7 or version 10, you can do a one-time import of those budgets into Gorilla. Now, there are limitations with these. For example, like a budget in Excel is not going to have globals and fringes and things like that. Um, and Movie Magic brings in the line items from the top sheet, the account, the detail level. It does not bring in the fringes and the global. Well, it brings in the fringes as a line item, okay? But that's not how Gorilla uses fringes and things like globals and things like that, okay? Because it's just a simple text file for Movie Magic 7 or an XML file for Movie Magic 10. All right. So those are the different options that you have to load a budget, right? Let me go back to my PowerPoint here. And then from another Gorilla user, right? So for example, if you wanted to load a budget that someone sent to you, you can click I think any one of these buttons really, and then this would do it right here, load a budget, and it would bring this folder, this window up, and then you could select other, and then find or locate the budget, on your desktop or on a hard drive or what have you, right? And down here, it'll tell you the path that you're looking at. So right now we're looking at documents on your computer. So in the let's see if you could see it here. It's a little hard to read, but in your documents folder, your Gorilla saved files folder, your saved budgets folder, these are all the budgets that are in that folder. Okay. So if I click on one of these, it will load it into Gorilla, and then you could launch the budget. So just a little bit of housekeeping there and how to load a budget. Now, saving is also something that's very important. Now, Gorilla saves your work as you go. So if I were to go into this budget right now, this 120K budget, do whatever I want, delete an item, add a rate, etc., and come back and close Gorilla. I don't have to save it. It's done. It's saved. So if I launch Gorilla again, I just click this budget, and boom, this all what you've done before, previously, the day before, is still there. However, the saving, what that does is it saves it to a backup copy, which is still a very, very, very good idea, right? So if you're done with your session, it's always a good idea to go into the three dots here, the more information button, budget options, and then click, for example, these are your options. So if I want to save in documents, which is the default folder where budgets are saved, you click on documents. The name of the budget is here. Again, it gives you the path. If you could see that right there, you could change the path if you want to save to your Dropbox folder, your iCloud folder, or what have you. And then click save, and it will make a copy of this budget that you have in the project manager into your documents folder, right? Now, if there's already one there, like I do have this budget saved in my documents folder, it's going to overwrite, or it's going to ask you, and it's going to overwrite that file with the new file. Now, I go over this. I take some time with this because it's really important about loading and saving, because we get a lot of tech support on that. So again, if I were to come back into Gorilla tomorrow, even though I saved the budget to my documents folder at the end of my session, I don't have to load it from my documents. Okay, it's already loaded. So in essence, we've got two copies of the budget. We've got one in the manager ready to go, and one as a backup or an archive, if you want to call it that, or a save file in documents. So if I come back to Gorilla, I don't have to say load my budget, go into load my budget. I literally just click the button right here and go into the budget, load the budget, and it'll go into my top sheet. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping of loading and saving. We do have some videos on this, so that's, you can check that out if you need some help with that. Okay, so that's loading and saving a budget. So let's go over the different sections of the budget. And again, this is a little rudimentary, it's a little simple, but we're going to get into some more complex issues with the budget as we move along. So let me just go over the basics of the budget. There are basically four, it says here sections, but I'm going to call it levels, okay? It really should be called levels. Four levels of the budget. You've got your top sheet, which is the summary. We're going to go into that right now. Your account level, which is the mid-level, the detail level, and that's where you enter your rates, okay? And then our fourth level, which is optional. You don't have to use the fourth level if you don't want to, but I'm going to show you later on how important that is if you have someone sending you an Excel file, okay? So let's go into the budget. Let's go use, I've set this one up here, this 120K to use as a sample. So I'm going to click on the budget to go into it. And when I do, it goes into what's called the top sheet, okay? And that's the summary. And this is just going to give you a summary. You can very quickly see all the accounts here. All right, so we got our different sections of the budget. We've got our pre-production, our production, our post-production, and our other. Now, you can rename those as whatever you want. So, you could call it above the line or below the line or what have you. This budget template has it named as pre-production, production, post-production, and other, right? So let me go back into my PowerPoint here, the top sheet summary, right? So this is basically your summary level of the top sheet. And you can see here on the right-hand side, the numbers that are for that particular category or account. So for example, set operations right here is $1,000. If I were to click on the $1,000 right here, you'll be able to see the next level, which is the account level of what makes up that $1,000, right? So in this instance, it's art director, although there's a zero subtotal there, but here are the expenses, these two 500s, and this is that level, right? So if I were to click, for example, here on 628825 for set operations, I would be looking at the set operations totals or subtotals, Best Boy, craft service, etc., right? And then if I wanted to go into the craft service to look at that, there are two ways to do that. So I can literally click right here on craft service and it'll go into that next level. And this is the orange level or the account level. Or let me go back here and let's go to set operations. You see this arrow here, this right arrow, I can click on set operations and I'll now go into the orange level or that account level, which is that second level of the budget, right? So let's go back to the top sheet. Okay. And this is also important here. These three dots are very important on every single line because it allows you to do certain things to that particular line. So if I were to click the three dots here for this line, you could see all these options, what I can do. So if I want to move this row up or move this row down, I could do move up or move down. If I want to insert a new row, I can do that. So I click that and it creates a new row. I can call it or name it whatever I want here. And I'll just call it new row. And I now have a brand new row in the production. Everything above production is part of that. In the production section, and I can then go ahead here and add accounts to that new row account. Okay. If I go back to the three dots here on set operations, you can see an insert total. Now, this is really powerful. What this literally does is it will create one of these section breaks, okay? So if I wanted to have a section break right, let's say, for example, if I wanted to have a section break right before camera, okay, I can go like this and I could say insert total. I can call this camera. Now, obviously, there's more than just camera here. We have camera, we have set operations. I can call it camera and set, whatever I want to call it, right? And click OK. And then what this will do is it will create a break right here called camera and set or whatever you want to call it. And everything above this whole section right here is now subtotaled. And I've created a subtotal for this section. You see that? So that's pretty powerful. So 07-00 to 11-00. I can do the have this as a camera and set section, and then I can hide or not hide this section. So here, what I can do now is I can literally go into the three dots here and say hide section. And what I've done now is notice that it graded out and it takes the subtotal and it changes the subtotal minus 34,000. So now I have this whole section that I hid that let's say I don't want to use it right now, or I'm not sure if I want to add that to the budget. or I can click show section and it brings it back. Okay, so these are very powerful things here. We've got notes over here that you could put for that line. Okay, you could rename it here. Now this is brand new in Gorilla 10. This right here, this plus minus percent total, is a brand new feature in Gorilla 10, which increases the um, the subtotal a certain percent, either 2 or 3%, or brings it down. And I'm going to show you how that works in a bit. Okay, so let's go into I think we're ready to go into, let me see anything else on here. Oh, another thing here is if you click on the three dots on a section, see here's if I click on three dots for a line, I have these options, right? Now, but if I click the three dots for a section, I have a little bit different, just a little bit different options, one of which is called add-ons. So for example, if I wanted to do an add-on for this pre-production section, and let's say add it $200 or $300 or a 10% add-on just to that section, not to the whole budget, but just to that section, I can go in here into the add-ons feature. And let's say I want to put a flat fee of $200. Again, you could do a percentage if you want, right? And then I want to do a flat fee, which is right there. And notice in green, it puts this little 200 there. So now it's going to be 800. So if I close this, notice it says 800, even though it's a little deceptive. 500 plus 100 is 600, and this is 800. But this little green plus button is telling me there's an add-on, okay? And you could see down here on the very bottom, you see that says add-on 200. So you can see that we've just kind of scooched the budget up a couple $100, or we could do that with a percentage if you want to do 10% or 5% or whatever. And that's basically our add-on feature. And you could do an add-on to each section, okay? If you wanted to do a contingency for the entire budget, then you would do what's up here, what's called, hold on a second, let me find it. A contractual charge, or insert delete percentage flat fee. Now this is a little bit different. What this is going to do is this will allow you to create, now there's 4 that are created here, but none of them are active. If I want to do a 10% contingency for the entire budget. So let's bring this up 108,000, 10% would be $10,800 approximately. You could create a contingency of 10%. You could say, see here, it's already percent. I could put in 10 over here, and then that would bring up the contingency, where I will add a line to the budget at the bottom that says 10%. Okay. And you could go and say 11%, 12%. And again, this is very common when you want to scooch the budget up or down, right? So that's contingency. So let's go on into the detail level, okay, this third level here, right? So if I go into, let's say, so do I want to go into set operations? Oops, excuse me here, sorry. Oh, I already did all that. Perfect. Let me go into set operations. And then this is the orange level. But if I want to go into the next level, I can't enter here. These are just subtotals. So again, there's 3 levels to this budget. There's the top sheet, the account, and the detail. The detail, so if I click on craft service right over here and go into the detail, or the green level, this is where you enter all your numbers, okay? And so the basic idea here is that amount, if you look at this, it's amount times X times rate equals subtotal. Okay, so that's the algebra or the math that works here. So this is an easier way to look at here. You've got 2 times 50 at 667 at a rate will be 667. So let me make this a little easier just to see here. If I put in $10 here, there we go. A little easier to calculate. 2 times 50 times 10 is 1,000, right? So this is basically how you create a line item. So if I wanted to create a brand new line item here, let's say I create a new one, I'll just call it new line item. And again, you could think of Excel. I mean, budgeting is basically Excel, but on steroids for filmmaking, right? And gives you a lot more features specifically for filmmaking. So if I create a new line item here, and this could be anything, it could be, I mean, you should keep it to the account. So this happens to be craft service or catering. So some, food or caterer or chef or whatever you want to do, right? And then by default, amount will be one, X will be one, and rate is empty, so it's a zero, right? Now, I don't have to do amount in X. If I want, I could just put a rate, and let's say this particular line item is just 2,000, right? Done. So you can do very, very simple math and just say 1 times 1 is 2,000. But this is used for if you want to use multipliers, like 5 days, right? At $100 a day would be $500, right? And we're going to get into that when we do some importing of the schedule. All right. So that's basically how you create a new line item. So if I were to go back and if I click the back button right here, notice I added 2,000 here. So if I were to go back here, this would add 2,000 to this account here, right over here. And if I were to go back again in the craft services, it would have added $2,000 to the top sheet. Okay. And you can see down here, the total is now 110. So that's basic budgeting, right? So if you know Excel, then you could pretty much navigate and do a budget here. All right. But we're going to get into some really cool features that make it a lot more interesting. I did add-ons. The budget increase, decrease, I will do. I'm going to hold that off for a minute, but I will come back to that. I'm going to not do exactly what's on here in the same order. Okay. Let's go into the account level. I did that a little bit here. What was I doing? I was in production. Okay. So if I go to the account level, just to show you the difference. Okay. And right here, 070. So if I click here on the arrow to go into the production staff, you'll see there's nothing here, right? Nothing here in the subtotal. So if that means there's no green level, there's no details for any of these items, right? So if I wanted to add a unit production manager and give them this particular role, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, I would have to go click here to go into it. Now, by default, it duplicates the name. See, it says Unit Production Manager. By default, if I click this, it literally duplicates the name of the account, right? If I were to go back here and click right here, First Assistant Director, by default, it creates a line, First Assistant Director. Now, you can change that, right? I can change this to, or add. Let's see, this is Sam Jones, who's the first AD. Okay, so you could certainly do that. And then go into the rate here, of course, let's say 5,000. And again, just do a simple 5,000, right? But if I wanted to do per day, for example, instead of a flat rate, I can go into the amount. And let's say we have a 10-day shoot and put in here 10 days. And well, let's say it's not 5,000 a day. Let's say it's going to be 500 a day, right? And of course, it's still going to be 5,000. But you can now break down your budget into days and say we're going to have 10 days or 15 days or what have you. Now, what happens if you go through and you put in 10 days and then a week down the line you realize, shoot, this has to be a 12-day shoot. Darn, that means you got to go back to the budget and change this 10 to 12. The problem is, let's say you've put 10 in not just this line, but you've added 10 to the art director and 10 to the grip and the gaffer and the DP, all 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, to go through 15 or 20 different accounts and change 10 to 12 is not going to be a simple thing. And that's why we have what's called a global. And I'm going to show you how to use a global. I know I'm going out of sequence here in terms of my PowerPoint, but I'm trying to do a stream of consciousness. It works better for me. So let's say, for example, now, let me actually, let me do this. Let me go into Unit Production Manager. Let me do the same thing here. Let me say this is going to be 10 days. And let's just say this rate will be a little higher. Let's say it's 650, right? So that's correct. So I have 10 here, and I have 10 in the First Assistant Director, right? Now, the proper way to do this, or not necessarily probably the better way to do it, is to create a global for the days instead of entering 10 days. So what you do is you go down over here to the bottom and you see this little globe. We're going to click that. And what we're going to do is we're going to click the plus sign and we're going to create a global. Now, a global in math, or at least in filmmaking terms, is also known as a variable. And if you know anything about math, a variable like x can equal whatever, right? X can equal 10, x can equal 12. You define the variable. You define the global. So let's call this let's just call it days. I could call it DAY if I want, right? or a D, whatever I want. And I'm going to call it shoot. Let's call it shoot days, right? For description. All right, we're going to say 10. And the equivalent of this is actually it's a day unit, so I could put in days, right? Now, what I've done is I've literally just created a line that says whenever I put in a shoot days global somewhere on the line, I'm going to show you how to do that. Also enter 10 for that. Okay, so let me go back here, and instead of this 10 days, you see this globe right here? You see all these globes? That means if you want, you could click that and click that. Now it puts a flag there, a little green flag. Now notice nothing really changed. It still says 10, right? And the subtotal is still 10. Let me do the same thing with the first AD. I'm going to go here and 10. Again, nothing changed, right? However, a big difference here is if I go back to globals, and now let's just change this here one time to, remember we said 12, right? So I'm going to change it to 12. I'm going to close this. Notice that it changed it here to 12, which calculated properly. And if I go to the first AD, I'm going to go back to the first AD. Because I defined a global for the line as opposed to typing in 10, it modified that too. So this is the power of variables or globals in filmmaking or in budgeting. So you could do a global and you could see the global because you have a green flag. And you could do a global in the amount. This is amount. You could do a global for the X, and you could do a global for the rate. So taking this to another level, if I wanted to do some rates for globals, I could do the same thing. I can click on the globe. I can go here and say, let's do another one. And let's call this C1 for crew rate. And we'll call it 1. You call it whatever you want. And this is 500, right? So I'm going to call, you know what? Let's just do 501 just so we can, change that from 500 and then click OK. Now, it's not days, right? This is a rate. So I could put allow. That's totally fine. Or we could do flat. That's another option. You could do flat. But allow is fine too. You really should put flat. But anyway, if I go here now over here and I say crew rate is going to be this one, notice it puts in 501. Okay. And the same thing, if I want the crew rate 1 to be to the first AD or the second AD or whatever, you could do that, or do crew 2, crew 3. And then you just go to the global section if you want to change rates or shoot days and change them here, and it filters throughout the entire budget. So that's globals. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use globals also with the prep shoot wrap option that we have, which is really cool also. Okay, I didn't show you that. Okay, and I really am not going to this PowerPoint, but that's okay. I will make sure I get to all of them. So, all right, so it does say in the PowerPoint to do this, so I will. So another feature we added in Gorilla 10 is the option, this was never here. See these check boxes here? So if I were to, put it this way, if I were to click this 3 dots here for a line, again, you can, whatever I change, I could do move up, move down, insert row, delete, it only affects this line, right? That makes sense. However, this we added, which allows you to select this and whatever else you want. Once you do that, I'm now selecting multiple items. So whatever I select up here will affect all the items that I've selected. So if I want to move them all or delete them all, I could just go bam, 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 go up here and say delete or move or clear or whatever, right? So the same thing in the detail level. Now I only have 1 line item here, but if I had 5, 6, 7, 8 line items here under the detail, let me just add one more just to have one. Okay. And then if I were to click this and then select action. So if I were to click that, I could say change currency, add, remove fringe, add, remove group, but we're going to go over fringes and groups also. Globals, right? Here I could add a global. Notice that right here, I could literally go and say add, remove global for the X or for the amount. Remember we added a global for the amount, but let's say I want to do it to all items here. I would deselect that, select that, and then go to select action and then globals. And I could say add or remove a global for the amount field or for the X field or for the rate field. You could do it all in one shot. Okay. So that's the new feature that we added. right? Okay. The prep shoot wrap preferences. So let me show you what that is. Um, if I go into, and I think that is in budget preferences, there's a tab here called prep shoot wrap. Now, this is one way to do it. You don't have to do it this way. But before you start a budget, it's like to set up your budget before you do it, like with globals, right? You want to set up your globals before you start actually going to and doing the budget. You can literally put in a line for how many weeks is the prep. Let's say the prep is 2 weeks and the shoot, let's just say it's a small shoots for 6 weeks. And this is the wrap is going to be 1 week, right? So what I've done now is I've created a line for prep shoot wrap as 2 for prep, 6 for shoot, and 1 for wrap. So if I were to go, for example, and let's see if we can do it here, and click prep shoot wrap. All I did is I clicked this plus sign, but instead of the plus sign with I clicked the plus sign with the 3 down there at the bottom. Notice it created 3 lines: 1 prep, 1 shoot, and 1 wrap. And notice that it put in 2, 6, and 1 because that is my setting for prep shoot wrap, right? So if I were to go in and say, okay, this is going to be this guy is going to be $200. This for the shoot, it'll also be 200. For the wrap, it'll also be 200. Whatever, we could do whatever you want, right? Or you could set the global, right? It'll automatically calculate 400, 1200, 200 over here on the right because we've got 2, 6, and 1 multiplying 2 times 200, 6 times 200, 1 times 200, right? So you can see how prep, shoot, wrap can also be very helpful if you set that up properly. Okay? All right. I did amount times X times rate equals subtotal. I did a manual entry. Showed you how to create a manual entry in detail. I just did that. Now let's talk about import from linked schedule. This is also pretty cool. And I'll use the camera department as an example. So what I've done, let's go back to the manager. Now, if you have the combo, which is scheduling and budgeting, one nice feature of Gorilla is that you're able to link a budget to a schedule that's already done, or at least that you have your shoot days and your day-added days created, right? And then I can go ahead and link this particular budget to this schedule or to that schedule, whichever one you want, by clicking on the 3 dots here and clicking link. Now this is unlink, but I've already linked it, right? So basically what that means is that I can bring some information from the schedule into the budget because I've linked it. So let me just go really quickly into this schedule here on the left, right? And this is the schedule. It's all done for the most part. I've got my strip board. I've got my actors. I've got my crew. So if I click on, for example, crew, you can see that I've got all these crew members here. I've got my DP over here, and now I only have 1 shoot day. But if I were to have 6 or 7, this is a sample. But if I were to have 6 or 7 shoot dates for the DP, of course you would see them all here, right? And also, if I click on the info button, you can see here, now you don't have to do this, right? There are many ways to enter rates in the budget. I already showed you quite a few ways. You could do it with globals, you could do it manually, and I'm going to show you another way also. This is the 3rd way, and I'm going to show you a 4th way, right? Now, but if you wanted to enter a rate for a particular crew member, you could do that here. Now, here I have a weekly rate of 1200, I have a daily rate of 445, right? So if I close this and go to my linked budget, and let's go into here, and let's go to the right line. You want to make sure when you do a budget that you enter the items from the schedule in the correct account. Like you don't want to put the DP from the camera department in set operations or transportation. That doesn't make sense. So there's a little bit of thought that goes on in creating a budget. So if I were to select the camera department here, now notice I've got some already here, but let's go into it, right? Now I already have a few things here, but I don't want to use this. So because I want to show you how to do it. Now there's a couple ways I could do this. I could click these 2 like that, and I could select delete, and this will literally wipe out those 2 lines. Gone. But instead of doing that, let's do this. Let's click these three dots and let's click on block. And let's do the same thing here and click on block. And all this does is I haven't deleted it, I just blocked it. So if you look at the bottom here, you're going to see that here's some blocked, shows you 12,500, it's blocked, right? And there's nothing in the total because it's blocked. Now it's not deleted, so I can come back here very quickly and say unblock if I wanted to do that, right? But for now, just for purposes of this sample, of this tutorial, I want to block them because I want to import a DP from my schedule. Notice here, this was not imported from the schedule. It just says 2,500 principal, right? So I'm going to go down here to the crew button. I'm going to click on import crew. Now, because my budget is linked to this schedule, as you can see up here, I can see all the crew members for my schedule, right? And here's Andrew Boyles, the DP. One shoot day. Remember, I only had one. We saw only one. Again, you would see more here if I did schedule the DP for more days. And here's the rate for the weekly rate, which is right here. Notice down here, you could specify. If I wanted the day rate, I could do that. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. I could literally click Andrew Boyles right there and say import into one line. And what this will do is it'll bring Andrew Boyles in, the shoot days that they are required, and the day rate, right? However, I don't want to do that. Let me delete this. I'm going to show you another way to do it. You can go back to the crew and click here. Oh, first of all, let me do the weekly rate, which is 1,200. Click here and do import into three lines, which is the prep, shoot, wrap, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to bring in Andrew Boyles. Now it overrides the shoot days in schedule because I'm using my prep, shoot, wrap in budgeting. Okay, so that's important to know. You can only use one or the other, right? You can't use the shoot days from from schedule if you're going to use the prep, shoot, wrap in budget. Okay, so there's a little bit of, again, of knowledge that you need. So I'm using my prep, shoot, wrap preferences. And here it says 2 weeks, 6 weeks, and 1 week, which is, again, the rate, however, is coming from the schedule. So 1,200, 1,200, 1,200, and you can see how it totals right there, right? So you can see how there are multiple ways to enter this rate. Now I'm going to show you another way to enter a rate. Okay, there's even another way, and that is by using our rate book. And we literally just released this. In fact, I think was it yesterday or a couple days ago, we literally released the 2026 version of the rate book. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click the three dots here, and I'm going to click on rate book, which is right here. And what I'm going to do, and let me go to the home button here. This shows you our 2026 rate book, and you can select any option here. Let me just go into LA, and then let me go into camera. And let's say we want to go right here to camera. And let's say here's the weekly rate right there, right? Oh, actually, that's a daily rate. Well, this is, of course, they get a lot of money, right? But if I want to do a weekly rate, here we go. So obviously, what I was doing was a low budget film. So if I want to do a weekly rate, I can click this right here and close this up, right? If I shouldn't have closed it, I should have kept it open because I want to be able to do the same thing for the prep, shoot, wrap. But you could see here that it popped in the weekly rate based on the rate book of the camera union, which is the local 600 union, as $5,596.56 at 2 weeks, and there's the rate for the week for 2 weeks. Okay, so that is another way that you could enter a rate using our add-on Gorilla Rate Book. Okay. Okay. I hope I'm going I'm too much here. Let me see if I can continue. I want to try to finish at noon so we can have Q&A. Okay, talent, import scheduling actors. Okay, so also, now I just showed you how to import crew, but if you wanted to import an actor, you can do that also. So let me go back here, go to talent, and here's the actors category, and click on actors. And now this is just a blank line item, right? So we're going to ignore it right now. But if you wanted to click down here on import actors, what this is going to do is it's going to bring up a list of all your actors, again, from the schedule, right? Now, the total days worked is going to be based on the added days from the schedule, right? So if I wanted to bring in Christine and I wanted to have her day rate, again, this is 450 for the day, I could click on this particular actress and she comes in at 2 days at 450 a day, right? And now if I wanted to, I could change this. I could literally go in and change the days to, I could do the global. If I want to go in here and say, let me do the global. But, that doesn't really make sense because the actors, we know how many days actors are needed based on the data days, right? Not, the crew member might have to be there every shoot day, but an actress or actor doesn't have to be there every single day. It's based on the data days, right? So if I go back here to change that back to 2, you could do that. Okay. And they're back to 2. So that's how you import actors from your schedule. Okay. All right. Let me go into the Create Prep Shoot Wrap. I did that. Budget preferences, global for actor. I think I did most of this already. I showed you globals, yeah, because I jumped forward. The rate book, I did that, which is the DP rate. And then fringes. Okay, so fringes are another advanced feature in Gorilla, which allows you to attach a fringe to any crew member or any cast member or based on the union that that enforces you to also pay fringes for that role, right? For the time period. So, for example, this is an actress, and the actress is a member of SAG. SAG has a fringe rate. You could probably find it in the rate book, to be honest with you. So if I were to click on the rate book and go to fringes right here, you can see that these are the DGA fringes, the Writers Guild. I'm sure there's SAG here somewhere. Here we go, SAG. Pension, health, and welfare fringe, 21%. Ooh, it used to be 15. Okay, it definitely went up. So normal SAG fringe is 21%. Okay, so let's say if we want to add a 21% fringe, well, let's call it a SAG fringe. And so we can add it to other actors, not just Christine. So we're going to go down here to the fringe button, and we're going to create a fringe right here. I'm going to call it SAG, and I'm going to give it a percentage rate of 21. Okay. And that's just, you could do a DGA, Writers Guild, IATSE, local, whatever, 399. All right. So now that I have created a fringe, what I can do is into this column right here, I could click there and I could say, let me attach a SAG fringe to this actor. And it already did it, right? 189, which is 21% of the total. Okay. And you can see down here, there's the total fringe, and there's the total including the fringes. And when you print your budget, you can print it with a summary of the fringes, or you can print it with a detail of the fringes, or you can just print a fringe report. If you want to know how, right here, fringe report, if you want to know how many fringes you're paying, right, just all over DGA, SAG, WGA, whatever, you can click a fringe report, and you could definitely just print that fringe report. Okay, so that's what a fringe is. And you could do multiple fringes. So you could do, even you could do multiple fringes for one person. So you could do a pension, you could do a health, you could do whatever. Because sometimes you have Social Security fringe. There are different fringes, right? So sometimes you will see more than one fringe attached to an actor or an actress, or even a crew member. All right. Now, if you're doing a low budget film, or if you do even a low budget film, if you're doing SAG, you need to do fringes. If you're doing a non-union film, both crew and cast, you pretty much don't have to worry about fringes. Okay, you just have to pay them a flat rate, and you're done. But if you're doing a union film, the rate book is important and the fringes are important. Okay. Budget groups. Okay, this is actually really a cool feature. Using groups. Now you don't have to use this feature, of course. You don't have to use any of these features, but they're here to help you. So let's create two groups. Now I'm going to go down to, go back to the top sheet, and I'm going to create two groups. So groups are created again. See these? I always go down to these buttons here, and if you don't know what they are, you just hover over them, and the tooltip will tell you. Like right there, it's very hard to see, but it's in groups, right? Or you can go to the pull downs up here, and a lot of the same options are available with the pull downs. But if I were to click on this groups button, there's no groups here. So let me create one, and I'm going to call this Atlanta. Okay. And I'm going to give it a color. You don't have to give it a color, but why not? It makes it easier to see in the budget. And then click here and click Nashville and give it a color. Now you can see what I'm doing. I'm creating groups based on a location, right? You don't have to do location. You could do anything. You could do based on, you know, um, you could do groups based, for example, on credits, or other incentives if you want, right? But I'm just doing two, one Atlanta and one Nashville. So now that I've gotten these two groups, basically I'm going to be shooting in Atlanta and in Nashville plus other locales, right? And then if I go into location expenses right here, I have two here, one that says shoot in Atlanta and one that says shoot in Nashville. So if I go into shoot in Atlanta and I give this I'm going to give this one flat rate of 25,000 because it's going to cost us 25,000 to shoot in Atlanta. Now I'm doing a very simple explanation. You can literally go to any detail item you want and attach Atlanta to that. So if I click these three dots and click on the groups and click on Atlanta, notice that let me just turn that off, that the blue icon is here for Atlanta, which means this line item is attached to the group Atlanta. And we've got a 25,000 there. So if I go back here and go to Nashville, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Let me do a different rate. Let's say it'll be 35,000, but I'm going to attach this one to Nashville, right? Nashville. Okay, so I now have two line items in the budget, one attached to the group Atlanta and one Nashville. Now, again, it's very simple. I could do many, many line items. I could do 20 or 30 in Nashville and 20 and 30 in Atlanta, but just to show you how this works. And then what I can do here is I can select a groups report, and anything that's tagged with the group Atlanta will be subtotaled here. And anything grouped with the group Nashville will be subtotaled here. Okay, so this is a very quick way to see how much is it going to cost for us to shoot in Atlanta. What are our Atlanta expenses and what are our Nashville expenses? And again, you could use groups for anything. It doesn't have to be locale, right? And notice there's an include and yes or no on this line item. This is really cool because basically, if I go back to groups, by default, these are include in budget. If I were to deselect Atlanta, then go to the top sheet, you would see that $25,000 would be deducted from my budget, okay? Because it's not included in the budget, okay? Same thing with here. You could say include or not include this this group into the budget. All right, so that's how groups work. And again, another really nice feature. And you could well, that blocky group, that's basically what include or not include, right? All right, let's go to the fourth level. And we had a question on currency. I want to do that right after this so I could explain currency. That was not in my PowerPoint, but I will talk about currency a little bit. So let's do the fourth level. And the fourth level is an optional level. Notice that we haven't even seen it yet. We're just on the third level right here. But let me go back to the top sheet. And let's say that our makeup hair department, a lot of times you give the budget to the camera guy, the DP. You give to the DP and say, go to your budget and come back to me with whatever it is that you want. Now, same thing with makeup. You could give them you could give them a budget, but you could say, go do your budget and give it to me. Now, chances are they're not going to do it in Gorilla. They don't need to do it in Gorilla, but they could do it in Excel. Okay, so if I were to, and we've got a sample here, and let's see here. Show you where that sample is. This is let me open this in Excel. Very simple Excel spreadsheet, as you can see. The description of the line item, this is for makeup, right? Costume, zombie, da da da. And then we have 3 columns here, and this is the rate. This is the X and the rate. We'll see in a minute what it is. And this is the rate. So let's say the makeup person is going to give me a budget for their makeup. Okay, and this is going to look like this. All right. So what I can do is I can go to the makeup line, and instead of me copying and pasting all those, I mean, it could be 50, 60 items, right? That's just 5 or 6 items in that makeup spreadsheet. So instead of me copying every single thing there, what I can do is I can click on, let me go into makeup, click the 3 dots and click on 4th level. See the Excel icon there, and it opens this other window up. And what this allows you to do, at least allows you to import a Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go and find that, which is right here. Okay, and here we go. So we've got our we can go through here: zombie makeup, zombie costume, cape. This is the amount, this is the quantity, this is the rate. And I could click on import, and bam. And again, this is just a small sample, but if I had 50 or 60 camera items, or grip or something like that, all that would come in. And then I could say, okay, I could modify it if I want. I could say, I don't know about the zombie costume for 125. This really, let's just give them 105, whatever. And then you could block something. It says, well, we don't really need bolts. I mean, I know I'm being very particular, but you see how you could literally manipulate their budget, okay, that they gave you, or that you did. It doesn't have to be that they gave you. It could be a budget you did in Excel. And then click on the and then close that, and notice the subtotal comes in 312.50. You can see a little paper clip button here and a little pink 4 there, which indicates that we've got a 4th level to this line item. And if I print my budget and the detailed budget, I can go to the makeup line, and you could see, you could turn this on or off, by the way. But if I go to, where does makeup? It's oh, darn. I forgot what number it is. It's 14 or something. Let me see. Makeup is 14. Yeah, it's a little hard. Even I have a problem reading this right there. So a little hard to read, but you can see right there, 14 makeup. Check it out. All those Excel line items are here with a subtotal. Now I could turn off showing 4th level in the detail level if I want. In the preferences, I could say do not show 4th level, because let's say it's 100 items, so you don't want to see it in every single budget, but you could turn it on so you could see a 4th level. So that's a really nice way to be able to segment your budget out into Excel spreadsheets, and then import that spreadsheet into any line item in that account. Okay. Let me now, I don't know what's next. Next is the header, but let me jump really quickly to currency since we're in the detail level. Currency, and we'll do it here. Now, the way currency works in Gorilla is a little bit different than other programs, but you always have a base currency, okay? Now, that base currency is a 1-to-1 ratio. So again, you have to know a little bit about math, right? So if I notice that it doesn't say dollars or euros or pesos or anything like that. So if I go to the top sheet, it doesn't say that this is dollars, right? I happen to create the budget in dollars, right? But if you create the budget in a different currency, by default, you don't have to do anything, right? You could just create it in that currency. And now it says here USD, right? It says USD. If I want to change the default currency to the Iraqi dinar or the Chinese yuan or something like that, in order to do that, we want to go into, let's see, we can go up setup. I think it's up here, currencies, right? Now, what I can do is I only have one currency here, which is the United States, right? So let's say I want to click the quick pick. Now, you don't have to use a quick pick. You could create your own currency. But let's say, for example, I want to do euro is very, very close to the dollar. So I don't like using that as a sample. But yen. Okay, let's use I was in Japan last year. I forgot what the ratio was. But anyway, let's say yen. Okay. So I now have a Japanese yen as a currency. However, notice up here it says base is United States, right? So you want to set up your currency pretty much before you create your budget. All right. If I wanted now to do some line items in the yen, let's say we're shooting in Japan certain scenes, and we want that currency to be in the Japanese yen only. First of all, you have to put the conversion rate here. So you would go into the internet and find out what the Japan, let's see what it is here. I have to do a little bit of work here to find out currency, Japan. Hold on, let's see here. Japanese yen conversion. I mean, you got to obviously look this up. So it's okay, so 0.0067. Okay. So if I go into here, okay, so I put in a conversion rate. Now, if the let's see if I can get this right, because I don't do this tutorial that often, but if your base currency is United States or dollar, you put the conversion rate for the yen here, right? If your base currency is the yen, your yen is going to be 1. If your base currency is the dinar or United Emirates currency, that's going to be 1. Whatever your base currency is 1. And then the conversion rate will be the conversion rate based on that base currency. Okay, does that make sense? You can only have one base currency, but you can have as many as you want other currencies. Okay, because otherwise you've got to convert from the base currency. It's got to have something to know what it's going to convert from. Okay, so for example, if I now have a Japanese yen as a second currency here, so if I were to go in and let's say go to production, I'm just going to anything here, and art department expendables, whatever, and I'm going to check. Now it says $500, right? But if I go into currency and I say I want that to be in yen, right? Notice it has the yen thing right there, right? The yen symbol. And once you do that, you can see that the rate is now converted, or at least there is another rate in brackets right next to the base rate in the converted Japanese yen rate. So the header is really, really, really important because a lot of times when you print your budget, you want to be able to, let me go into setup header, right? And this is where you could set up what you want on the top left, like your logo and et cetera. So if I wanted, for example, to put, a lot of times the budget, you'll see the DP on there, or for the producer, not necessarily the DP, but the producer, the director, et cetera. So if I wanted to go in here and say, let me put the producer, this is taken from again, this is about linking a budget, a schedule, I'm sorry. So if I wanted to put in the director, I could just click the director, and this is bringing in the director from the linked schedule. Same thing with here. If I want to have the producer, I'm sure I have a producer here somewhere. There we go. Right? There's a producer. If I wanted to do a company header, I could say, I could put in the information here, or I could say use info from linked schedule. And if I do that, and then close this, and then do a budget print, let's just do a top sheet, right? This is now going to show me on the, there we go, the top sheet report. Right there, it's going to show me the two titles that I have there, and this is my header for for my schedule. Now, if you want to do a different header, you could do that. You don't have to use the header from the schedule, but this is the header from my scheduling module, linked schedule. And in order to get there, I'm going to show you that. I'm going really fast, I know, but I can go here to Hotel Cucaracha. That's the linked schedule. Click on logo, and here it is. This is if I create a different one here or change the address or a phone number and then go back to the budget, that will change also. Or you could create a header in the budget, regardless of what the schedule says. It says don't use the linked schedule header, use the linked but a header here. Okay. Okay. Select crew. I showed you that display from schedule, standard versus short. This is important too because when you go into the budget, there's so many options to print that header. Um, Let me go back in here. Down here, header print selection. So if I wanted to do standard short, it scrunches things up a little bit. If I want to do professional header, what that will do, pardon me, is print all of this information, script dated, prep start date, etc., etc. And you could choose if you want none right there. I don't want any header. If I just want the captions only, which is this section here, you could do captions. And we have all these options because many users just said, I only want, the captions there. I only want, the professional stuff up there. So we modified the header preferences tremendously so you could just decide what it is that you want to print or not print. Okay. And then reports. I think that's the last thing there, right? So I was showing you some reports as I was going through the program, like the top sheet report, the detail report, etc. You could do a fourth level report and show the makeup stuff, right? You could do a globals report, which shows you all those globals. So in case tax incentive discounts. Okay, that's credits. That's credits. I don't have that in this tutorial. We do have a video on that, but right here, if you want to do credits, I'll just show you really quickly how that is. You could do tax incentives as part of credits. So I think it's right here. And I don't have one set up, but what you would do is you would create a credit, and then you could do certain. You could do. It works really great with groups. Okay, remember I showed you Nashville and Atlanta, right? So if you wanted to create a credit on Nashville or a credit on Atlanta, you would do the groups and then create a credit here and attach it to that group. And then anything in the budget for Nashville or Atlanta, if you create two tax credits, two incentives, you could then say, 10%, 15%, or whatever it is. It's a little complicated in terms of, because you could do cap type, you could do include fringes or non-include fringes, you could do variances and this and that. So I would watch that video. We do have a video on it. If you go up to budgeting, let's see, training videos, budgeting, it is here. And might be even two videos. I don't know. But again, I can totally show it to you, but just like the currency, I'm not up on it. And I'm going to show them not do a great job. Right here, credits and tax incentives. Okay. Watch that, and it'll show you exactly how to set up a tax incentive for a particular locale. Okay. And then you could do a report on that. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Again, that is definitely a little more advanced, and same with the currencies. That's why I don't include it in this. I didn't prepare for it. I put it that way, right? Anyway, since I'm in here anyway, I think I showed most of the stuff here. Import Excel into the budgeting, import Movie Magic. I showed you that. The only one other thing I did not show you, because I want to open it up to even more questions if you want, is the accounting and tracking expenses and the accounting receipts and the new accounting features. All this section right here is about tracking expenses against your budget. And so we do have a feature here that you could literally enter let's say you have a 5,000 budgeted for XYZ, but you've paid 2,000 of it already, whether it's by payroll or whatever. You can go in there and say we've already paid 2,000 of the 5,000, and then do a budget balance report and show a report on what's paid and what's not paid. Okay, and that's in the account level. So watch these videos about how to do accounting and tracking expenses if you want to get into that level of detail. Okay, we have all that there also. Okay, so I showed you more reports. You click this button down here, more reports. It's going to show you the entire budgeting section of reporting. Now, I showed you the top sheet and the detail here, but expense tracking shows you that budget balance report, right? Fringes, if you want to see all the fringes, the globals, the groups, the location, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. all this right here. Okay, in currency conversions, you could do a report on showing that also. Down here, you could do this Excel button, which is really good because that will allow you to export your budget to Excel. Powerful because a lot of times you want to modify the budget or give it to someone that really wants to manipulate it or change it or import it into another program. You can click this button here, and all this you could export to Excel. You could do your top sheet, which is just the summary. You could do the detail. You could do all this information and just export to Excel. Okay. Let me go back here to more reports. Um, let's see. Preferences I showed you. This is the header I showed you. Um, all right. So if there are no more questions, again, thanks for joining the webinar. This will be posted shortly. Well, within a couple days, let's say. And have a great day. Thanks, guys.